Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Wednesday, November 29th. We're going to take an updated look at Lucid today. So Lucid trying to make a little break for it at the moment. Outside of this downtrend resistance, we see it's mustering more strength than it has maybe since it's been here. Maybe this is about the same stretch, maybe not. But, it put in some motion outside of there yesterday and then today as well. So it didn't immediately fall back in, though today it's a fairly top-heavy wick, but also wicking off of a level that we would expect it to, this 451-ish level. It even stretched a bit above. So that can be a good sign. It's hard to say. Before we get too deep into the video, I'm all very skeptical about Lucid's capacity and capability here from a chart perspective, just because these long distressed stocks, we've seen it over and over and over and over again, have a really hard time not only neutralizing the trend, but it's a whole other story to reverse it. So to me, the longer distressed that a stock has been, and the more it's muddled around here and tried to put in some motions a few times, right? You see this one here. The more I feel like it really needs to prove it, right? A neutralizing of the trend, or certainly a reversal of the trend, really requires a lot of proof to me. So that's where this is going to be coming from. So, if you're wanting to be more bullish or whatever, that's fine. But just know that that's sort of the backdrop under which all of this is coming out of my mouth. So, stretching above, I do think this is in a more impressive fashion than we have seen ever on this downtrend resistance. There was this little push here, but that was not as much now that I look at it as this one, I don't think. And then, these are near misses or hitting their head right off of the downtrend resistance. And so can it do it? I don't know. I'm really interested to see what the motion looks like here. We did see a nice pickup of momentum volume as well. That said, it was coming off of that sort of holiday week, so could have been a bit of an artificial die down. If it is going to get some distance and it's not just going to sort of push up, well, let me say that first. If it does push up, I would look and I would want it to take this, say, 450 level, and then I'd want it really to push toward 5 sooner than later, maybe over the course of a couple of weeks, because it's a big percentage change. That would make me feel like, okay, maybe there's something to this. The other option for it to get some distance is to just move sideways, right? Just sidestep its way out. That's the idea of sort of like neutralizing the trend in the longer term capacity. If it's able to do that, it could even just bounce itself around from 450 down to about 420 or 425, right? And even if it's able to do that and get itself some significant distance here, it gets itself compressed and sort of coiled, and then gives itself an opportunity to break out. Now, where that breakout comes, the upside or downside, is still a question, but it still gives itself that compression zone by which we can start to say, okay, it's confined within this price range, and we'll look for a strong break in either direction to know where it wants to move next. But it would at least maybe say, okay, it would take a really significant downturn for it to fall back underneath this downtrend resistance. So those are my two scenarios. Either get yourself up and over 450 and make a run sooner than later at 5, or even 475, something psychological like that, or sidestep your way for a longer period of time between this 420 and 450. Now on the think or swim side of things, really relatively flat. And I know it looks bigger here, but if you look at the really big, movements, these ones here, like this real roller coaster period, this is all really, really flat on the histogram. And yes, it's continued to kind of trickle down, but nothing like the volatility that we saw there. It's been trickled down, but under relatively less, generally speaking, volatility. So, it looks bigger when we zoom in. The histogram looks like big pushes, but, in the history of the stock, It's not as much. So that's all just to say it's sort of sticking itself, not always to the mid-range, but it's sort of sticking itself to or inside the channel. I know it's spent a little time outside here and here, but that's really not that significant when we look at some of the other long distress stocks and how they can spend significant periods of time outside of the lower bound of the channel. And right now, we do see it pinning itself to the mid-range. Now, what would make this whole thing more interesting, even from the fact of what we're looking at on the Webull chart, would be if while it's pinning itself to the mid-range of this channel, it continues to do that, but that this TTM squeeze indicator starts to trigger these red dots here. That would get pretty interesting to me, especially if it holds a smidge of motion above the mid-range of the channel. So pinning to or slightly above, we see a little bit of bullish momentum picking up here on the histogram. But if it starts to trigger, I would be really interested to see what could happen, because we see several repetitive waves here, right, where it sort of dies down near-ish to the baseline, but it doesn't quite make it, and then it just picks back up and then dies down and then picks it back up and dies down, right, and never really returns to the baseline. So this is the first time in a while that has happened, right? The last time, I guess, it would have been over here, right? This was back in July, and we did see a little bit of push up out of the upper bound of the channel at that point, which in its current state would put it, maybe toward 5 or something like that, depending on where the channel ends up, because this is dynamic and it moves. But, that's the thing that is a little bit different to me on this push, right? Not only are we trying, we have the most significant push out from under this downtrend resistance that we've seen ever, but also for the first time in a long time, we are seeing a baseline on the histogram and then a developing of slight bullish momentum, which could develop into larger bullish momentum. We'll see. But I would really, really want to see, what would make this super interesting to me, like I said, is to see the TTM squeeze indicator start triggering. Doesn't guarantee that there will be a big movement that happens when it fires, but it at least, maybe compounds or enhances the possibility a little bit, at least brings some more intrigue to it as we try to read the charts here. All right, folks, I hope that you had a happy hump day, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.